There's your chat. Can you copy and paste out of there?
No. It's fine.
Okay. All right, we'll give it a couple seconds. Make sure it goes live. Nothing here either. So I'm trying something a little bit different tonight. I've got my wireless mic on here so that I could be mobile, and hopefully that won't interfere with everything else. Hopefully we sound even. Okay, I see a Yo Spags.
They're on the wrong side. I know, it feels weird.
We switched it up. Oi. Oi, mama. Okay.
The camera is very low, too. No, normally it's not so.
Because on the guild meetings, we want them to actually see things. On Friday Live, we don't really care if people see the details. That's how I feel about it. Okay, we ready to go?
This is going to throw me off. It's throwing me off, too. Like,
Mirror image.
It's like...
Okay, we ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so welcome everybody to a guild meeting. If you are new to the guild, this is our monthly, we try to do it monthly, guild meeting where we just kind of pick a topic. It's typically something that I'm working on at that time because that's the most convenient thing to do. And I'll do a little demo and then open the floor to questions, and you guys can ask questions throughout. It can be relevant to the topic or off topic, but generally during the demo, Nicole's only going to throw questions at me that are specifically pertaining to the thing we're working on.
Yes.
Okay? So thank you everybody who showed up. We appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about string inlay. String inlay is an old technique. It involves using very thin pieces of wood, and you could make straight lines, curves. There's all kinds of things you can do because the pieces are so thin. They're very, very flexible, like this. And especially, I've done some in the past where we've put them in hot water to get them to flex even more. And it can be quite a fun little technique. So I'm doing this on the current under workbench cabinet build, and it's all made of walnut, so I figured it would be really nice if we could set off those drawers. People who follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you've seen some of this stuff. If we set off the drawer design with a nice perimeter inlay of maple. Now the handle we're going to insert here is very dark as well, and I feel like it really punctuates that and makes it look super, super nice. So I'm very excited about this. I think it's a fun little technique. This is a very basic version of a string inlay because it's basically just a perimeter. You can use a router to make it, and I'll show you all the techniques that we use to do this. Somewhat abbreviated.
What's it called again?
String inlay. Oh. Say string theory. Atta girl. Somebody's been watching The Big Bang Theory. You know, Nicole and her physics background.
String theory.
Yeah, she's discussing string theory. Okay, so that's the story with the string inlays. So let's just get right down to it.
String.
It can get a lot more complicated than this, and I will sort of give you a bit of a disclaimer. This is not something that I have a ton of experience in. The ways that I do this, people who do a lot of string inlay, there are specialized tools to get the job done. I'm using none of those. I'm just kind of, winging it and getting it done. So if you know of a better way to do something, don't be surprised that I'm just kind of showing you a very, entry-level method on how to get it done. And if you really want to get into this stuff and specialize, that's always out there for you.
What kind of equipment specifically would they need?
Really just the router is the only specialized equipment. If you are going to buy these, this is the inlay material, the stringing, you can actually buy these pre-made, so you don't even have to make these yourselves. But I did make them. So to make these, I pretty much just used the bandsaw. We'll get into that in a bit as well. And a chisel, that's the only other thing you really need here. Maybe a hand plane if you want to plane some of the stringing down and flush it to the surface.
Looks like chopsticks.
Yeah, they are like little baby chopsticks. Little swizzle sticks for your coffee. The only other specialized piece of tooling comes down to what we're putting into the router, because to make a 16th inch band and a 16th inch groove, you really need a small 16th inch bit. So go to camera 2 if you wouldn't mind, Nicole.
Camera 2. I'm on this side because this is where the computer is.
And I need flexibility on this side. So you may not even be able to see it in this video, and I apologize for that, but there's only so much we can do live. That is a tiny 16th inch straight bit. It is not a spiral configuration, just like a standard 2-knife cutter on there, and it is super teeny tiny. Now I've used this for decorative inlays in the past. You can do some really detailed work with this thing, and that is the smallest one I have. But it also works really well for the string inlay too. You'll also notice it's just my laminate trimmer, my small router, small format. I like that for this because I want it to be a little bit nimble and not too top heavy. And I don't even have a standard edge guide for this particular router, so what I've done, I used some old C-clamps and I clamped on a piece of lumber with a nice straight edge, and that works really well as a fence. So that's really the only specialized tool that you're going to want for this.
Chairman R says, no scroll saw.
Well, I'm not sure what you would use the scroll saw for in something like this.
Yeah.
Because you're really just creating a shallow groove and then filling that groove with a very thin piece of material like this. So unless I'm not thinking about it properly, I can't really think of where the scroll saw would come into play. Now I want to show you very quickly here. We'll get this router set up and we will cut the groove. This is the piece that we're going to use to make this demonstration happen. So I know in this case to follow the pattern that I've done here, something very similar to this. We've got a 1/4 inch buffer zone and then the inlay happens. Now you can vary that as much as you want or bring it out closer to the edge if you want. Obviously the fence on the router is going to dictate that location, so I set mine for about a 1/4 inch. The only things I need on the workpiece that I'm going to do this perimeter in terms of marks are right at the corners. I need to know the start and the stop points. Now, I don't expect you to see this very well because I'm using pencil on walnut, but I can see it. And that's what matters because I need to see it. So I'm not really going to do this entire thing. It takes way too long. You do want to go nice and slow, but I will just kind of route out something like a corner to show you how that process is done. But again, the most important things are your start and stop points because you are going to run that bit all the way across and then by eye, stop at the pencil line. If you go too far, then you have this little divot there that doesn't look very good when you put your inlay in. All right, so we are going to cut that right now. I'm going to move over here. If you could turn that laptop, no, never mind, I could see through the screen. There will be a point that I'll need the volume lowered.
Okay.
And I think the volume right now is at like 98. You're going to want to take it down to like 10.
Is that the movie or Scarlet?
Up there.
This one?
Yeah, so you're
Okay,
going to
yeah.
slide that down.
Okay.
Only when I'm ready to run this router.
Only when you say.
When I tell you to. All right, so let's do a bit of a line here. I don't want to go all the way across because again, it's gonna take too darn long. But we'll get it done. Do a corner, a nice corner. All right, I got Rob Zombie stuck in my head now because of that song being on. All right.
You listening to a little Halloween radio, or is that just your?
No, that's just Spagnola radio, the huge. You also have.
You're very blurry. Ooh, oh no, it's better.
Girl, how you gonna say that?
It's fine now. It was blurry. You put your arm right in front of the camera,
Well,
so it said.
It wants my arm. It likes my arm. You have hearing protection over there. I have mine here. Okay, so we're just gonna set up for this. This is a plunge router. You don't necessarily need a plunge router, but I like being able to plunge slowly because this bit is very, very fragile. So I'm going to take my time plunging, make sure I'm right on my line, and then start going. The other thing is let's see. But you know, I've seen demos of this where they use just a fixed-based router, and as long as you're just very careful about how you drop it in, it should work fine. As far as the depth goes, we are not going deep at all, about a 1/16 of an inch. You do not need a lot of depth, and the more depth, the more you risk breaking this router, right? So keep it at about a 1/16 and I think you'll be fine. Now notice another thing about this piece of wood that I'm using as my fence. Look how big it is. All right, that's really crucial because I'll tell you what, by the time you're at the stage that I'm at with my drawer fronts, I have joinery cut, I've got dovetails cut, I've got grooves cut, I even have, what's that?
I don't know. Oh, it's our kids. Sorry.
Okay. I even have a recess cut for the hardware, and that's a lot of things to potentially ruin by an inlay going off course. So this is a high stakes routing operation by this stage in most projects. So you want to be very, very careful. Practice on scrap first. All right, so I'm going to fire this up. Nicole, if you could turn the volume down.
To what?
Like, I don't know, 10.
10.
We just don't want to blow their ears out.
Okay.
But if they could still hear it, that's fine. Ready?
Yep.
me temporarily bring it back up.
Nice and slow.
Can you bring the volume back up?
I did.
Okay. All right, so I basically just did this line.
Right in the way, they couldn't see much.
It's okay. Normally you go all the way across to the end and then just kind of work your way around. The side here, the side grain, that cross grain cut is a little bit tricky. And what I'll show you, if you guys are subscribed to the under workbench cabinet build, you'll see me do this. It's much better to have a little bit of help here. And what I usually do is put the other two drawer fronts, one on each side, and that provides a lot of extra support. Just make them flush at the front, nice and flush on top, and you'll be able to have a nice steady run without the risk of tipping. But in the interest of time, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna just wing it. Okay, ready? We're gonna route one more time.
Somebody said, Stuart says, it looks like there was a slight wobble of the fence. Did it show in the cut?
No.
Nope.
No, that wobble was before I was actually into the material.
Do you want me to lower it?
Yep. Done with the routing. We're back up.
I have a question.
Okay.
It's from Gil. He says, wondering about cross-grain inlay. Seems like you could run into issues. Is the inlay just thin enough to be flexible? Issues with glue joint, the miters, especially the wider drawers.
Yeah, generally, if you have a really big drawer, you might want to be careful about that because you've got a lot of movement in that. And then you have a cross-grain piece of material that's in there that is not going to move. So there's only so much that you can fight, you know what I mean? So I don't think it's going to do anything detrimental in terms of damaging the material, kind of like if you glued another piece here and totally restricted the movement of the drawer front. The drawer front's going to move. And I think if you just have this kind of inlay in a really, really big drawer, what you may end up with is gaps at some point. I think at some point the drawer is going to win that battle, and you might just see a gap open up. So I think there is a point where you can't do this anymore, or you risk having, problems. So I like to give it a little bit of a sanding, just to get some of that frayed material off. And down here we have a corner, and that corner is actually.
Excuse me.
Oh, bless you. That was a weird one.
Well, I'm trying to hold it in. Not sneezing my mic.
So right in here, 16 by 16, as you go into that corner, it's pretty close to square, but you may have to do just a little bit of cleanup with a chisel. It is not much at all. All right, square it up. Square it up. That's close enough. We'll get a little better right there.
Butch wants to know, why not just use a router table?
I suppose you could. But you also can't see what you're doing on a router table, so you'd have to be able to stop at a very specific point.
Yeah.
And if you can manage to do that at the router table, all the power to you. But sure, that's definitely an option if you could work it out. Okay, so now we got to talk about the actual stringing material. Wish I could see my camera. There we go. So this is maple. This comes from just the solid board that we chop up. And we do actually have a very quick video because I can't get to the other side of the shop. This is a quick demonstration of how that material is made. Click on. There we go. So the first thing I do is cut a 16th strip. It's actually a little proud of a 16th. You're going to want to try this a couple different times and sneak up on it. But essentially we're making a very fine cut at the bandsaw. Then the leftover material is kind of rough on that one side, so you can sand that down and test your fit. It's going to be snug. You want it snug. But if you can get it in with some force or chamfering the edges a little bit, you're pretty good to go. But you do want it slightly oversized. So now with the smaller bandsaw, I'm using a fine tooth blade and cutting it into roughly 1/8 inch wide strips, and then getting the bandsaw cut edge, smoothing that out a little bit.
Why are you standing on top of your piece?
Well, because that's what I do, Nicole. Okay. And then go back to the other camera, click on the play button.
Play.
Yes. And in the end, you end up with stuff that looks like this. Now there are, like I said, there are other specialized tools that will help you cut this material, but this worked fine for me using the bandsaw. The edge does get a little bit choppy, but that's okay. It's not that big of a deal. You just kind of, like I showed in the video, you could sand one end or one edge of that, and it gets it, you know, fairly smooth. That's the side that you're going to put down into the groove. And the rest of it can remain choppy because you're going to flush that down. You're not ever going to use that for anything. So that worked just fine for me.
Stars and Stripes Woodwork said DeWalt does have a fence attachment they sell if anyone else has the same trim router.
Yeah.
It works great.
Yep, I don't have one, so if you got one, smoke if you got them, as they say, Nicole. Okay, so what we're going to do is start cutting some of this stuff. Now, really, not much in the way of specialized tools or methods for this. You simply need to get these things cut to the right size and popped into the hole.
No glue?
Yes, glue.
Oh, okay.
But you know, there's no trick to getting them sized properly. You just have to do the work. So we'll put this out here. Now imagine we have a full length section here. We're just going to do part of that, and we're going to assemble one joint because, believe it or not, we are going to miter these, all right? Which is kind of cuckoo-ca-choo. They're so tiny. So here's a little jig I made up. Nothing special there. Just I used walnut because I like to anger people on Instagram. So this is a little bit of a fence, and that fence is at a 45-degree angle. So all I need to do is take my trim piece, slide it in up against my fence, take a nice sharp chisel, put the chisel back onto that edge there, and chop down kind of like a guillotine. And now I've got a nice sharp 45.
Nice.
Okay, so there's one side. So what I would do then is take this to the work. I'd slide it in right to the end. First of all, I'd go, that's not fitting. Well, because these are slightly oversized. We kind of want that. So I'm going to take this piece. Here's a sanding block, about 120 grit. I'm going at a slight angle here. I'm not staying on the flat. I just want to kind of create a bit of a bevel. Do it on this side as well. And once you do that a few times on each side, we should be able to pop that guy right down in there. Look at that. Boom shakalaka. So if I were going all the way to the end, I would then mark it with a pencil and make sure I get pretty close. And then I would sneak up on the fit with the miter. In this case, I'm just going to stop here at the end, but I'll still get pretty close. Mark it with a pencil. Now, I'm going to miter it anyway, just for the heck of it. On these pieces, I don't like to use the chisel to chop all the way through if I have a whole section, because I'm often using the remainder of that section for another part, like a short end, right? So I don't want to crush it. I don't want to destroy it. What I'm going to do is bring it over here. Actually, that doesn't matter where you do this. And then I have a little razor saw that works quite nicely. And I will cut that down, get the length established first, and then take that end and do my mitering. Let me know if my camera angle is terrible or anything.
It looks good. I can see.
Chop, chop, all right? So there's the other end. And this does take a little time. You sneak up on it. You get a little faster the more you do it. And eventually, you will have something that's fairly decent. So I'll pop that guy in, push it all the way into the corner, and then I'm going to stop right there. I'm not gluing it in yet. I'm going to take my next piece, and I'm going to do a little miter on the corner to get it started.
While you're doing that, Joseph wants to know if my bandsaw is kind of cheap and cannot be trusted. Is there another way to make strings?
Well, you can cut them at the table saw if you have a way of cutting thin strips.
Or buy them.
Well,
like
yeah,
that,
you can
right?
buy them. At the table saw, you can set a stop up on the left side of the blade and then continually move your fence over. I have a couple of videos on how to cut thin strips at the table saw, so look that up on the main Wood Whisperer website, and you should find a couple other alternatives.
Yeah, the thin strip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so now this guy Basically, I'm going to take that miter that we just made, meet it up with the first one, and that is a nice tight miter joint. Then I come back here, mark my other side. Same routine, we'll cut that down first so that we could retain the banding, stringing, inlay, whatever you want to call it.
Cutting thin strips at the table saw? Is that what it's called?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Found it.
Okay. And once again, we would miter that end, slowly sneak up on that perfect miter fit, and then pop this guy in. See, I mean, even just this sample, how cool is that? It just
so
immediately
fancy.
looks, yeah, I classed this joint up, just like that.
It's funny because when I look at this, if I didn't see how you did it, I would be like, how in the world did you do that?
It's way more complicated looking than it is.
Like you built it, like you put a border, and then you like glued it.
Right. Yeah, it kind of creates that illusion. It's kind of neat. So I just got a little bit of Type On 3 here. It doesn't matter what glue you use, in spite of what my Instagram post said. That's a joke, Nicole.
I know.
It's a good one.
It's a great job.
No, seriously, any glue is fine for this. You do have to be careful at this point because you want to make sure you could see what's going on in that corner. So wipe it away if you have to, because you want this miter to get all the way down in there. Push it down. Take your second one. Now this is something I like to do. I make sure I take that miter, grab some glue from somewhere else. I want glue on that miter end grain just to make sure that stays nice and tight. Then I can pop that sucker in there. Push it forward, push them together. Make sure you have a nice tight joint.
Looks
And
like
then,
gluey hands.
yeah, and I mean, clamping pressure on this, it's kind of difficult to do if you're using traditional clamps, or if you know they're all sitting at the same height, you might just get another piece of wood and clamp them together, sandwich them. But I found spring clamps to be really, really simple and work very well. So I just kind of want to clamp each corner like that. And then I would grab a couple more clamps down the line as needed. And I find that that works just fine.
Lower it down, lower it.
Like that, sorry. Just like this. And then really you give it about a half hour to set up, then you give it a couple of hours to totally cure, and then you can start to flush it down. Here's one that's already done.
Steve wants to know, would using a drum sander make a more uniform thickness of the saw string?
Absolutely. If you have a drum sander, there's a reason I didn't mention it, because I don't want to assume anyone does. If you have a drum sander, you are in better shape because you could really take your time, size it down to perfection, and have two perfectly smooth surfaces. That's actually how I made these. I just didn't think to mention it because I want to make sure people know how to do it without it. But
Right.
But certainly a drum sander is going to be your best friend with a project like this. All right, so now we have, I did this a couple hours ago, so it's mostly dry. You do have to be careful with how you remove this material. If you get too aggressive, you could pop a chunk of it out.
Ah.
Oh, shoot. Tripped over the damn tripod.
You're kicking all the cameras.
Sorry. It's kind of crazy over here. If you are too aggressive about it and you chop this stuff out, you could pull a whole section out and have a nice gap to deal with, which is no fun. So what I would recommend is if you have a block plane, even one of these little tiny guys, you could use that. Make sure you're going with the grain and start to work it down.
While you're doing that, Scott wants to know, if you use more than one piece for a long run, do you miter where the inside ends meet?
Yes. So if you have a really long stretch and it exceeds the length of your maximum work pieces, ideally you would want to make something like a scarf joint. And that's where you create a long miter on one piece, a long miter on the other, and join those up together. The shallower the angle, or would it be the more severe? You know what I mean? The longer you can extend that miter, the more disguised that joint will be. But on pieces this small, I mean, you got to decide how picky you want to be about it. You could just go end to end. Minimally, for me personally, I would go 45 to 45. That's the minimum. If I could, figure out a way to do it with a sharper joint, I would, because the closer you get to a true scarf joint, the more well disguised it's going to be.
I do the same thing in quilting.
Do you?
When I'm
you do
doing
scarf joints
I do the angle to
hide a joint?
Yep. When I need a long run of fabric for binding.
Well, look at that. That's remarkable, Nicole.
Yeah, it is.
So at this point, sanding, all right? I'm not too worried about it. The sander, once you get down past that really high stuff, as long as you put the sander right down on top of this, it will grind those down until it gets flush with the walnut face. But you could also just use a block to even it out further. Now I'm gonna go off camera real quick and I'm gonna sand this with the random orbit sander. You can't see it, but I'm gonna do it real quick.
I'm watching them. I see it.
And Nicole's watching it happen. And just like Rachel Ray pulls a casserole out of the oven, I've got my corner joint in place, nice and smooth. And check that out. That's really nice.
That's beautiful.
Right? Nice and simple. Again, the thing you really got to watch out for with this technique is the fact that it's a very high stakes operation. You want to be very careful. A lot of it comes down to how you hold that router, having your pressure down on the base, pushing in with your hand, and all of your effort is into making sure that router stays level, stable, and allows you to go across the work and then stop where you need to stop. If you go even slightly off course, it's an eyesore, and you got to be careful about that. So we could probably switch back to the other camera.
JR says, cool looking pen. Can you include a link? What pen is he talking about?
This pencil.
Oh.
Go back to the other camera.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I might move the camera a little bit over. That is a Graph Gear 1000.
Oh, is that from the set?
Yes. Remember we did the whole
if you,
thing.
I'll look for a link and I'll put it in the chat. But it's
Graph Gear 1000.
It's in our Amazon store.
Yeah, and they make them in 0.7, 0.5, 0.3, 0.9.
And around the holidays, the set that he really likes will go down to like $33. It's normally like
normally
55.
40 to 50 or something,
It's
depending.
55 normally.
Okay. Yeah, good set. Highly recommend it.
I'll put a link.
So that's pretty much it, folks. You can get really creative with how you do this. Imagine, different ways that you could apply a template. I see a gap on something. Okay, it's sitting on something. Never mind.
So is that a piece that you're going to use, or is that just, I see a whole
It's scrap.
Okay.
This was a piece that I used as a proof of concept to work out some of the hardware installation. But I had some extra walnut, so I wanted to use it to match exactly the same material I was using for the project.
Nice.
But you can get super creative with this. Think about using various templates. So you could have shapes that you establish through some other means, but then follow it with a guide bushing or something like that and go around. You could do all kinds of decorative things with this. And you can get pretty creative as you take these thin 16th inch pieces of maple. A lot of people use holly because it's one of the few like almost pure white colored materials. But this maple is pretty white. But it does take a bend to a certain extent. And then if you moisten it in hot water, effectively kind of like steaming it, you can actually get it to take even more of a bend and get some really decorative things going on. So a lot of fun with it with a technique like this. You don't have to use the router. You can use, if you've got an attachment for a Dremel, you could use one of those. What is something starts with an F? It's a little grinding tool. It's like a high end. It starts with an F. You guys know what I'm talking about. Silver handle, comes with a little foot pedal. I think it starts with an F. Did I say that? And you could use one of those in a base with small bits like that. So anything that makes that like really small 16th inch bit size would be a good candidate for something like this.
Let's see. Michael wants to know, is the scarf joint in your book?
No, I didn't cover a scarf joint because a scarf joint it's not so much like a traditional joint. When we're talking about structural joinery, the scarf joint can be employed in some, like you'll see it in some timber frame construction, Japanese timber frame construction, but that is more like a technique that's used for things as opposed to like a top level joint, because it's really just a miter joint, and it's a miter where the angle is just extremely shallow, and then the two pieces come together so that the joint is almost going in the direction of the grain, which makes it very hard to see.
Doug wants to know if I've used the Hawaiian print. No, I haven't. I've been really busy with Woodworkers Fighting Cancer, and I've really had zero time to do any quilting right now.
Ain't got no time, she said.
I'm trying to get back because I got holiday gifts to make.
Yep, it's coming up fast.
Let's see. Chris Rice says maybe a zero clearance fence would work? Question mark? I'm not sure. You were talking a lot.
That might not.
Were coming.
Yeah, that might be in reference to something else. I don't.
All three of my cats didn't like that sanding.
Sorry, kitties. Meow. Are they really tall cats that need a riser? Because we got one.
You're talking about
tall cats. Remember the joke?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
A large cat is I think what I said.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
3-camera shoot? No thanks, sir. I think we'll pass on a 3-camera. We could barely do a 2-camera shoot. This is complicated.
I don't know what this question is, but I'm gonna just let you rest for. Do you know what that is?
No.
Oh, I don't. Sorry, Mark.
That might be a typo.
Okay. Yeah. Fane, Saber, what?
So yeah, we're going through the live questions, so it's a little different than Friday Live. So the Nicole's got to actually pick them out. So bear with us if you're watching live.
How did you recess for the pull?
Oh, okay. Yeah, the pull is a little bit of a complicated thing. You'll see the full process in the project series. But basically, first thing I did was route out with a template. So I had a template exactly the rectangular dimension of the piece of hardware, and I go down about 1/8 of an inch, whatever the thickness of that top layer of hardware is. Then I used the Forstner bit to make the circular section, and then I took a router and made that top square section and just squared it off with a chisel. So it's kind of a 3-part process to get there. A little bit complicated. Definitely one of those times where like folks are like, hey, that'd be easier with a CNC. And I say, you know what, you are right. It'd be way easier.
We should probably mention that we're going to do a watch party for the first, is it the first 2?
It should be the first 2. I'm up against the wall here on this one because I got to get the video from Todd and have it ready. Yeah. It'll be the first 2. The first video is really long, fairly long, so I might abbreviate it a little bit to make it so we're not all sitting here for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. But we will have a watch party with the first 2 episodes of the under workbench cabinet build. So you can kind of see what that's all about if you are, maybe on the fence. It is still available for the pre-order price. Mm-hmm. So you can get in there now, and it will be available up until that night, through that night, and then Saturday. What is it? It's on Friday?
No, it's on a Thursday.
Okay, so then on Friday, it leaves pre-order, and the price goes back up. So.
Got a question here from Araya Woodworks. Any difference between water and oil-based stains? What do you recommend?
There's a big difference. One of them is water-based, the other is oil-based. By nature, they respond differently on the wood. A water-based stain is going to raise the grain. The oil-based stain will not. Water-based stains tend to dry fairly quickly. As soon as the water kind of evaporates off the surface and the wood dries, the stain is dry. Oil-based generally has a boiled linseed oil sort of carrier as part of the mixture, and now you're waiting for that to dry. That could be up to 24 hours sometimes, and even longer to really fully cure. So there's huge differences between them. In the end, from 10 feet away, can you tell the difference between an oil-based stain on a piece of wood versus water-based? Probably not. I mean, maybe a super experienced finisher could point out a difference because there might be a little sheen difference or even just a little bit of ambering from the oil. But generally speaking, you could hit whatever color you need to hit, whether you're using water-based or oil-based.
I'm texting Mateo and asking if he'll let Dougie in. I can hear him barking.
And I think a lot of it comes down to what do you want to work with in terms of your top coats and things like that. Do you want to be in the world of oil-based finishes, or would you prefer to be in water-based? That might be the biggest thing that dictates what you use.
I've got a question here from Marvin. Do you have a good resource for the pre-made inlay?
I don't. I quickly looked, and I found a website that does specialize in inlay bandings, but it was all like the herringbone patterns and just patterns that I'm not really interested in, and it's not the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I'll look around. I'm sure someone who does this all the time has a resource for just standard white, brown, whatever colors you would need, pre-made inlays. We'll look around, and if there is a source, we'll definitely have it by the time we get to this part of the project.
Michael wants to know, do you have a video on sliding dovetails? The ones you made were excellent.
I haven't done a video on that. I mean, we've done sliding dovetails in a couple of projects. Shoot, I can't think. Did we ever do one on the free site in a project?
I don't know.
I know we've done it in the guild a number of times. I don't know if we've done it on the free site.
Gotcha. We'll have to look into it then.
Yeah, and I probably should. It would be very wise of me, like while I'm doing this stuff, to do a video for the free site and have a technique, but I just didn't think of it. It is in the book though.
Oh.
Sliding dovetails is in Essential Joinery.
Nice. Dennis wants to know, can you pour epoxy into the groove?
Sure, but why would you want to?
You know what I was thinking?
That's a joke, by the way. I will finish that thought.
I was recalling the time we went to David Marc's shop, and he had like the green. That would look kind of neat.
Yeah, I mean, there's powders you could buy now.
Yeah.
Like he was grinding his own from pen blanks, pencil blanks, from like acrylic, shiny green, emerald colored stuff. And he would put that powder into epoxy and use that for various decorative elements. You can certainly do that here, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You just want to make sure you get all the bubbles out. A lot of people do that. I'm going to call it lovingly the poor man's inlay, and because it's actually a lot easier. All you have to do is create the recess, then you're filling it with a liquid, and it's a perfect fit.
Right.
Whereas cutting a piece to fit into said recess is a whole lot harder, but you can do some things that you can't do with wood necessarily. You could, like you said, fill it with these colored powders and things like that and get some cool effects. So yes, absolutely mix up some epoxy, fill it up, hit it with a heat gun, and get those air bubbles out, and it should be a pretty cool design, pretty cool idea.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. I would have considered it if I wanted something, maybe I was doing a light colored wood and wanted something with a cool visual effect. I might have gone with something like that, but certainly an option.
Justin wants to know, does anyone have any good plans for a lamp? David Marc's has an amazing lamp.
For his bent
Speaking
wood
of
lamination
David
lamp?
Marc's.
I don't.
No. Does he sell that plant?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Check out djmarks.com.
You can get the Woodworks video on it, and then he has dimension drawings and stuff that you could use.
Let's see. Tim. Hey, going to start the Rubo soon.
Hey, Tim.
Is it worth getting the bench-crafted Rubo plans too?
Nope.
When I order the vise?
I highly recommend you don't do that because it's going to confuse you. What winds up happening is we made a few small changes, and a lot of times it comes down to me looking at someone else's plans and Monday morning quarterbacking them and going, why is that 7/8? That should just be an even number. Or why is this gap not big enough to fit my parallel clamps? I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So the plans are close enough at this point. The only reason I would say really, if you look at their instructions for the hardware, any differences, like for the crisscross mechanism, which is the newer version, the videos showed originally the old version with the parallel guide, but we do have supplemental material for the crisscross. That can create some confusion, but the instructions should be pretty clear that come with the vise that explain exactly how you adapt it to the workbench and what the requirements are. So that shouldn't be too difficult, but I've had people who bought both versions of the plans and then they write me and say, wait, why is this different? And I'm like, well, why are you looking at their numbers? Because you spent a lot more money on our plans, that's the one you should use. So my recommendation, save the money, you don't need it. Their plans, unless you're really good at reading blueprints, like their plans I found quite difficult to read because I'm not that type of plan reader.
Plan reader. Let's see, we got a question here from Elliot. So during one of the Friday lives, you showed off some prescription safety glasses. Do you still use them? I usually wear my regular glasses. Yeah. But I'd prefer to actually use safety glasses.
Yeah, regular glasses are not safety glasses. So if you think you're safe by using them, you're not as safe as you think you are. So it's a really good idea to get prescription ones. Now, I'm guilty of this too, as I throw stones in your general direction. I sometimes say, oh, well, I've got my glasses on. Let me just make a quick cut. In reality, I should be using these. I do use these quite often, though.
What's the company again?
Oh, shoot. I don't know, Nicole.
I remember. It was like tactical.
No. They sent me, that company did send me some, but this particular one was one that I ordered through, I don't remember, some prescription eyewear, online vendor.
Is it here in Denver?
The company, the Tactical RX company.
Oh, it's here in Denver.
They're in Denver, but they They really cater to like range shooters.
Oh,
You know,
gotcha,
so
gotcha.
but they're expanding.
Yeah.
And so they are a brand, but this was a company. Shoot, you know what? I think Jim Ashley was in the chat room.
Yeah, I saw Jim was in.
I think he used the same company, or maybe he recommended that to me. Something about
Jim.
that I remember. But this is the kind that I have. Now this is, it's got basically the side shields. It's a real nice fit that hugs my face. My regular glasses sit off of my face a little bit, leaving lots of room for stuff to get in. This one also has a foam liner at the top that goes across the brow.
Frames Direct?
I think so. That sounds very familiar.
I'll Google it.
So yeah, it's a company that does all kinds of prescription eyewear, but they also do safety glasses, and you can't miss them when you see these orange lined ones. And we must have talked about that on Friday Live at some point too.
Oh, I'm sure we did. So,
Frames Direct sounds very, very familiar.
yeah.
That's got a prescription
Oh.
safety glasses,
there you
framesdirect.com.
There.
So yeah, check them out. But yeah, try to get into the habit, and I'm again guilty of it myself. Try to get into the habit of taking your regular glasses off,
Hey, there's your glasses.
putting them aside. Yep, the Titmus. And look,
There.
any title with that word in it
Titmus.
gets my vote. Nicole. Okay. So yeah, those are good. Check them out.
Check
And what are
them
they?
out.
$58?
Yeah.
Not too bad.
58. And 3 different colors.
Yep. And they have a bunch of different styles as well that you could look into. But another company is Tactical RX. We did get sent some samples from them. Yeah, Tactical RX, and it's a local Denver company. So as an alternative, I think they're more expensive though.
Ted McMahon.
Our buddy Mick Mahone.
Have you ever made leather suede covered foam pads for inside a box? Does epoxy stick? Is that 2 separate questions?
That sounds like 2 separate questions.
2 separate questions. I don't think the epoxy question has anything to do with the foam pad questions, maybe.
No, I haven't really done a whole lot with leather and suede outside of, my bench dogs and my Vice face. Haven't done anything like that, so I have not. Does epoxy stick to cured varnish? Epoxy kind of sticks to everything. If you have a cured varnish, anytime you're doing those types of things, I would probably recommend giving it a little bit of a sanding, so there's a little bit more mechanical bite. So if you're looking for a really good bond, I think that's probably not a bad idea to prep for the epoxy to go down. But generally speaking, the epoxy doesn't care what it's binding to. It's generally going to stick to everything.
It's not picky.
There's a question in the woodworking group on Facebook where someone was asking, how do I get epoxy out of my hair?
Yeah,
Right?
I saw that.
And I'm like, I didn't even read the comments on that. I'm like, that's
A lot of
terrible.
people just say, cut it.
Yeah, cut it out. I'm not sure that's worth doing. Like,
Yeah.
by the time you get that stuff out of your hair, it would be so frazzled and
Oh,
frizzy
yeah,
and
yeah.
split. Like, cut it out. You know what I'm talking about, Nicole?
Where's that from?
Oh, that's what's his name from Full House.
Oh, yeah. Joey.
Yeah. I had that one locked and loaded and ready to go. Cut it out.
Christopher wants to know, could you use your Veritas router plane with a fence for the string inlay groove?
I suppose you could, and if you really get into like old school string inlay, that's the kind of things. There are tools specifically for this type of thing that can cut those grooves for you. I guess you could if you can get, I know they have smaller cutters there. I've got actually the whole range. I'm not sure how small they get, but yeah, theoretically you could. You just have to be very careful about tear out on something like that. If you can do it and get a clean cut, then sure. But I know in my hands, I would probably get frustrated with that technique.
Aw, that's not nice. Let's see. I wonder if you could use a blanket. Do you still use, Jesus wants to know, do you still like your DeWalt chop saw?
Yeah.
Is it the one with the light?
No light on mine. It's not even a slider. It's a very basic design. I can't remember what the code because they all look the same. It's like DW713 or something like that. But there's no light, there's no laser, nothing fancy, just simple 12-inch static chop saw. Super great saw. And but that said, I mean, it's doing its thing. It just, the dust collection is atrocious on it. So at some point, I reserve the right to change my mind and get another chop saw again, if only for good dust collection. And whether that, someday if I get frustrated enough with the dust collection, maybe I'll be back to Festool again, or maybe another company will get their act together when it comes to dust collection and actually get good, dust collection comparable to what the Capex can do. and then I won't have to buy the festival.
Joe wants to know, do you know a good source for custom length bandsaw blades?
What is that? Is that saw blade? Bandsaw blade? There's like some generic name.
Sawblades.com?
Something like that. Maybe they, or even bandsawblades.com.
Yeah.
I'm just talking out of my butt here. I don't know.
Carter
Highland
doesn't do anything like
No,
that.
I don't think they do custom. Does Highland do custom sizes in the wood slicer, or is it all pre-sized, pre-made sizes?
Yeah, you're asking questions and I'm
Shoot,
like way up here.
I'm just throwing ideas out there. I don't have a good answer.
Yeah.
See, is bandsawblades.com a website?
I think it is.
And that doesn't even mean that they do custom. You're like that hunt and peck action right there. All right, bandsawblades.com.
All right, it's gonna take us to like.
There it is.
Oh,
Oh, it went to an app. That makes no sense at all.
Frame.
Anyway, look around. I bet you'll get a better answer from the chat room than you're getting from me right now.
Even Google is gonna give you a better answer.
Oh, Nicole, how dare you? It's not that bad.
Bandsaw blade custom sizes.
Olson? No, that's an ad. Bandsawbladesdirect.com. Custom welded Lennox bandsaw blades. And Lennox is a good brand. So maybe check them out. Maybe that's the site I was thinking
Yeah,
about. Bandsawbladesdirect.com. Like Frames Direct, Nicole.
That's right.
Clearly anything with direct.
We're direct.
We need to buy the
Wood
Whisperer
Whisperer
Direct.com, and then we will truly be successful. What else we got?
James wants you to give a shout out to Shrek. Why do we need a Shrek?
Like the Shrek?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he's not watching.
Pretty sure he's not real.
Nicole, to some people,
Shrek.
he is real.
I'm guessing.
Maybe a friend of theirs is named Shrek?
Probably. Or maybe, I don't know.
Can't think of a scenario.
Let's see. Hey, Sean's in the chat. Now that you're going down the stringing path.
Whoa. Let's hold off on that. Who says I'm going down any path? I've made some string inlay, and I will now walk away from that.
Are you going to do some federal?
See, I knew he was going to take it deeper. No, I'm not. Like, I like federal. I think federal is a pretty cool style. That's not to say that I won't go into that at some point, because I do like some of the, like, what is it, the little bellflower inlays and stuff like that. There's some really cool stuff in federal. So maybe, but I don't have any current plans to go in that direction, but you never know. You never know with me. Sometimes I get a wild hair up the cooter, and I got to do things.
Yes.
The guild meetings become so much more like Friday Live when you're here.
I know.
Normally it's just like kind of serious. Let's just get the job done. Let's talk about some woodworking, do a demo. But with you, I'm goofing off.
You try to make me laugh. Dan wants to know, have you had a chance to use the cabinet scraper since you switched to the Veritas tools?
I haven't.
Any initial thoughts? So
I played with the
no
planes. I have no thoughts. Generally, that could be said of me at any time.
Yes.
I did not have a chance to play with this. You could see it's still exactly as it came out of the box, and I will give it a thorough workout very soon and let you know. I gotta say, it's a card scraper, like a cabinet scraper style card scraper. I don't think I'm gonna be disappointed or surprised. I think it's probably gonna work almost exactly like my Stanley number 80s, and maybe a little bit better because the sole is actually flat. But outside of that, if you can't find one of these number 80s on eBay or something like that, I would say the Veritas is probably gonna be a pretty safe buy.
Joseph wants you to talk a little bit more about your newfound love for the PV11 steel.
PMV11. He wrote PV.
Yeah.
Well, there's really not a whole lot to say. It's a new steel that Lee Valley developed, and by new, I mean several years old. It's new to me because I just haven't purchased anything with that steel in it. It's one that is supposed to be, kind of the best of all worlds. It's a little easier to sharpen than A2, holds an edge better, and holds an edge longer. So, my first experience with it, I sharpened up, my low angle jack, I sharpened up this little smoother, and then I got one of their block planes in PMV11. Sharpened up very quickly, and I would need more sharpening sessions under my belt. You guys know I'm not a heavy hand tool user, so my sharpening is a little more few and far between than other people. But from that limited experience of honing those blades and getting them up to snuff for usage, I was really impressed with it. It honed really well. It took up a mirror shine very quickly, and I am so far very happy with it. So I'm just now starting to use these, and I'll be able to report back probably in about 10 years on how well it holds up. No, seriously, I'll probably know within a few months how long that edge holds its shape and how soon I have to sharpen it again. And then when I do sharpen it, how fast I get it back to a nice, really razor sharp edge. But so far, so good. And look, lots of people way more experienced in hand tools have reviewed PMV 11 steel, and it is not just kind of marketing fluff. Most people agree almost unanimously that if you want to spend a few extra bucks, it's a no-brainer choice for a tool steel.
I'm finally getting down to the comments when we were talking about custom blades. So apparently Rockler does custom.
Really?
Which is Olsen blades.
No kidding.
Carter
But then you're stuck with an Olsen blade.
Then Carter Products does it too.
I'm just taking shots at everybody tonight.
I got a question.
Carter does do it. Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I did not know that.
I got a question from, come on, add to broadcast, JRP Harmon. Getting ready to finish my Morris chair and stool.
Mr. Harmon,
Harmon?
you have a telephone call at the front desk.
With Osmopolix. I have seen plenty of videos of it being
Yes.
applied to horizontal surfaces. Any suggestions on how to apply on a chair, leg, slats, etc.?
Yeah, get some of the white Scotch-Brite pad material, dip that into that can, and start rubbing it down.
Stop rubbing me with
Start
some
rubbing
of
me
that.
with that chocolate. So yeah,
Osmopolix.
you basically want to rub it out thin. You do not want a lot of material. So doing this by hand, you can actually really buff it in really well. Spread it around so it's nice and thin. You just want the wood to kind of get a little bit wet. You don't want it dripping. So this is very easy to do on vertical surfaces because you don't want the drips anyway. Try to get as much as you can out of it. A lot of elbow grease, and then once that's done, you can come back with a fresh white Scotch-Brite and wipe it down again. And then I generally, some people will leave it at that point, but I go back, and if there's any standing material, I just grab a clean cloth and just kind of very lightly wipe any of the shiny stuff or any pulled areas down just to make sure it's a nice even sheen. That's how I do any small parts or things that I can't get buffers and some of the other things you use for the big horizontal surfaces. But I have applied multiple projects by hand just because I didn't want to break out the buffer and deal with all that stuff. And it applies by hand just as well as it does with power buffers and things like that.
Geo wants to know, hey, Bot and Millie.
Geo, Bot, and Millie.
Hi, what finish would you recommend for a preschool room table that gets wiped down with bleach solution every day? Paint. No.
I mean, there is a time where some of these, nastier finishes, the ones that are just a little bit more harmful, really make sense. And when you have harsh cleaning solutions happening, that's one of those times. So things like an epoxy tabletop finish, one of those pourable epoxies, conversion varnish, maybe even pre-cat lacquer or catalyzed lacquer. Finishes that I just don't use these days anymore. But if I were doing something like that has to withstand that kind of cleaning, you really don't want that stuff on the wood itself. I just can't imagine that being very good. So the thinner finishes, the hard wax oils, those things are not great choices. Even things like Armor Seal and a lot of the wipe-on polys that we've used over the years, I just feel like you want something a little bit stronger than that.
What'd you use on that white table with the handprints?
Oh, that was lacquer.
Was it lacquer?
I don't know if it was pre-catalyzed. It was probably not, but it was a lacquer. So
you
that would be
sprayed
my
it.
suggestion. Maybe there's other suggestions out there, but I don't really even know the reactivity of bleach. And I'm not even so concerned about the bleach itself as the
it
fact
seems
that it's
like
being physically rubbed down, aggressively rubbed down every day,
Yeah.
So
That's where plastic works pretty
a
good.
plastic table is your best option.
Chris wants to know if you have any experience with Target Coatings
Nope.
M-Tech.
Nope. I know a lot of people who use Target and like it. But outside of that, I do not have any experience with that.
Let's see.
Sorry, Chris.
Joseph is in the chat.
Joseph
What suction
is
settings
here.
do you run your Festool vac while sanding? In a few recent videos, people have been saying that you should run it at its lowest suction, but they don't explain why.
Okay, I can tell you the why, and then I can tell you that I don't do that. Generally speaking, they're turning down the suction to basically only have enough suction that is required to get the dust into the system. Anything more than that has a tendency, at least theoretically, to pull your sander down onto the surface. And that's one of the things that can lead to those swirly marks, the pigtails, all the stuff that we see when you have a bad sanding job. So what they're doing is dialing that down a little bit to lower that suction and that pressure. Sometimes the pressure gets so high that you could push down on it and almost lift that board up. And that's what they're saying, is that pressure pulling it down is causing an artificial amount of pressure on the pad, and been driving that down into the grain. So the only reason I could think that they would be doing that is to avoid that happening. So if you can get adequate dust collection by turning it down, there could be some benefit to the finish quality and the sanding quality when you're done. I don't even bother doing it. Why? Because I don't see any problems on my surfaces. If I start seeing swirls and pigtails and problems, then one of the things I might do to troubleshoot is turn it down a little bit. But until I see that, I want as much suction as possible because I want all that dust to get sucked into that thing. So unless you see an issue, I would keep it up, or start maybe 3/4. But again, like I said, I don't even worry about it.
It's just like, okay.
I could talk myself back into it if you want me to. But yeah, I don't even deal with it.
James said that Shrek is his buddy from work.
Well, there you go.
You know what? I heard he's a rock star.
Is he?
Yep. Hey now, you're a rock star.
I knew you were thinking that. That's terrible.
I know it is. Araya Woodworks. Oh, I have another deep question. Mark, what would you tell your younger version of you 10 years ago, 10 plus, now that you've been creating content for so long? What would you tell yourself?
Brace yourself.
Brace yourself.
This is going to be great and terrible at the same time. Maybe don't dress up like a woman.
Yeah.
That might be one thing I would tell myself. No, seriously, it's a good question. I think I would probably tell myself. I mean, really, the problem is it would be the same.
Take breaks.
It would be the same advice I could give myself today, and that I continue to ignore. And that is, don't take it so seriously.
Yeah.
Like criticism. That is.
Yeah.
Don't let the trolls get to you. Yeah. And the problem is, that's just not who I am. Things bother me, and I do take it personally because I love what I do, and I put my heart and soul into things that I make. And anyone who does that probably has a certain amount of pain, when bad feedback or trolls come into play.
And you don't shut yourself out. Like, if you wanted to, you could just create your content, put it out there, and
ignore the feedback.
And never go.
A lot of people do that.
And
we may get there one day.
Yeah.
Because I'll just be sick of it, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I would tell myself that piece of advice, knowing that I'm going to ignore it anyway.
Right.
Because it's hard for me to, those two sides of my brain, they're inseparable. The fact that I take pride in what I do makes me sensitive to criticism in that way, right?
Invest in Bitcoin, I would have told myself.
Yeah, I would not have told myself that.
Mine some Bitcoins on your computer.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, I don't have a whole lot of regrets in life. Anytime I think about that, I'm not the kind of person who dwells too much on the past. So there's really no amazing commentary that I have on this. I love where we ended up. I love the journey that we've taken. And if I had to do it again, it probably would have gone down exactly the same way.
It's fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah, there's nothing I would have changed.
Justin wants to know if you're wearing any Duluth gear today.
Your pants, right? Or your undies too? Your armachillos?
Armachillo, baby. Notice I was very careful not to show any tasty bits to anyone. I'm wearing armachillo. I actually have the Flex, whatever. What's the Flex one?
No, I don't think that's the Flex Flyer, but these are Duluth.
No, they're stretchy though.
Right, these are the stretchy
Whatever
ones.
it is, but I'm wearing the pants. It's crazy. It's funny you should ask this because it's not like I'm doing an ad for them. And I'm wearing the shoes.
Just likes their clothes.
Well, no, the thing is, that's the truth of what we do. I would not have taken them on. In fact, we turned down another clothing company because it was like, I'm not really wearing their stuff. I don't feel comfortable doing this.
Yeah.
But Duluth was a no-brainer because I actually do wear it.
Walt wants to know, how does the Veritas block plane feel in your hand compared to the Lee Nielsen?
Comparable in weight. trying to think, I haven't really
Ooh,
evaluated it.
this one's, is this the new one?
That's the one
here, let
from
me feel it.
Lee Valley.
This feels heavier.
Does it?
Yeah.
Maybe by a hair. But they both feel equally good. They each have the divots in the side, you know, for your fingers, and that's really where a lot of the comfort comes, because I hit that with my middle finger and my thumb. Then my forefinger usually goes up here in that little thing, and they're so similar in that way. Like they each have little divots and stuff like that. The problem is, this is all I've used for a very, very long time. This feels like home to me. The Veritas version is new. So I can't say that it's necessarily less comfortable.
Right.
I can just say that I'm not used
It's
to
just
it.
different.
But it is not, it's not like it's foreign. They have
Right.
designed it in such a way that it is consistent with what my hands expect, but it's just a little bit different. But yeah, the funny thing about the Veritas design, the way I described this to Jay, because he goes, it looks like a classic car. And I said, actually, to me, what it looks like what a car designer in the 50s would have designed as a future car.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
It's
a
got
little bit,
like
right?
those little details that only the imagination of a 50s designer would this have come about. So it's kind of got this weird classic / futuristic look to it, but it's pretty nifty. I like it. And unfortunately, it is just a little bit too big for this little ramp that I built here, which sucks.
Let's see. Matt wants to know, making floor-to-ceiling bookcase out of 3/4 ply, dados on the side and back, width of 28 inches, a hard maple strip along the front edge, necessary for tongue and groove, or just gluing the maple to ply.
So you're talking about for the trim?
This is a
Yeah,
hard
he's
maple
talking about
strip
gluing the
along the front edge.
You know what? You can get away with a lot with just a butt joint between your trim and the plywood. And a lot of people would say, just glue it, it'll be fine. I personally like to see some sort of next level joinery, be that tongue and groove or even biscuits along the edge. Some people might use pocket screws from the inside to attach it, you know, or even brads, you know, if you want to do a little bit of filling.
Brad.
Glue plus brad. Glue plus some brad nails is not a terrible idea. I put that one step above just glue alone. But even if you did just glue alone, it's probably going to be okay. But ideally, if you can get some kind of dado or tongue and groove action on there, you'll be better off.
Joseph, I just want to say, I liked the soul patch at the time. I encouraged him to do that. So.
Soul patches are never cool. Well, that sounds like someone who can't grow a good soul patch. You ask me.
Joe has a question. What is the modifications you made?
What, if any,
what, if
modifications
any? Oh, can't read.
do you make to the base for the cabinet? We're probably going to add on a little strip at the front.
You've
just
taken
to give
all
us,
the boards out.
Oh, of course, you take the boards out. That's
Yeah.
step number one, the shelf boards. Put a little strip in the front, behind the front rail. That's going to give us a little bit of support behind that little dead man add-on piece. You need that to hold the front of the cabinet, because right now I've only got about a 1/4 inch there. So I'll add a strip onto that. The only other modification I need to make is I've got to cut my chop. So my chop, the design, kind of goes down a little bit low and then curves in. The top of my cabinet is going to hit that. So I have to remove about 1 inch of that. So I will be taking the chop off and reshaping it and bringing that design up a little bit and then sculpting it back into place just to provide clearance for that top left drawer to be able to come out all the way. I have seen a couple people who've designed them and forgot about that. And then they get this thing in there and they go, well, crap, I can't open all of my drawers because the chop's in the way.
Yeah, yeah.
So you do have to think. There's a lot of gotchas on this one that I almost designed myself into a hole, and thankfully we caught it in time to make a modification.
Araya, yes, we answer a lot of questions on the guild meetings, because if you've ever been on Friday Live,
It's a very different thing.
it's a totally different
There's fewer
experience.
people.
Yes. And so I can actually put questions up and
there's no pre-selected questions
Right.
from Patreon or
Yep.
anything like that. So
yeah. So
that's just part of the service we provide here at the Wood Whisperer Guild. You guys are paying. You're paying customers.
Alex wants to know if you've ever made any commission work since the platform bed. I don't think you have.
No, everything's been for family,
Yeah.
friends. I don't think I have made anything
Yeah.
that was a commission for anybody else.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy. That was my last one, huh?
Yeah, and you
I've turned down plenty.
Unfortunately, I think you got, because he also took a while to pay you.
Yeah, it
was-
took like a year to get paid for that project,
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
kind of sucked.
Yeah,
But we moved, and it wouldn't matter anyway
Yeah.
because we can't build for the guy anymore.
right. Mick wants to know, how do you like your new iPhone? Oh no, that's the Primo, not the iPhone.
He didn't say new,
I can't read.
and he didn't say iPhone. He just said Primo.
I love
I
my
think-
new phone.
You want to borrow these, Nicole?
I kind of do need glasses.
Okay. I love the Primo. Big Green Egg is the big name out there, right? And I love Big Green Egg as well. I've got a little Mini Max that's fantastic, but the reason I went with the Primo was because of the oval shape. It's a little more conducive to doing the thing I love doing on my smoker most of the time is ribs. But yeah, Primo makes a fantastic Kamado.
And so does, you like that little tiny green egg.
As I said,
that
the
tiny-
Mini Max.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that thing. You can't go wrong. I think there's like 3 brands right now that you just can't go wrong with. There's Kamado Joe, Big Green Egg, and Primo.
Let's see. Got a question. I don't know if that's a question, JR.
It's a side discussion, it says.
Yeah. While chiseling walnut, do you think of chocolate also?
Dark,
It's
smooth.
so dark, so it's
silky.
silky.
You just once in a while do.
Like Dove.
It
I
does
love-
kind
Oh,
of.
look at his dog.
It definitely does look like chocolate.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it, I can't say that I think of that very often.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of focused on like just getting this thing done. But sure, yeah, why not? Milk chocolate, not dark chocolate though.
Let's see. They're just giving you a hard time about the soul patches, Mike Deemers.
Sure. Look at that beard.
Look at that beard.
Yeah, you look like you got a muskrat hanging from your face. What are you talking about?
Mike.
I read an article
Yeah.
that explains that there is more
Listen,
there. No. I will go.
We already know
I'm
this.
letting all of these beard wear. Look, because I have a beard sometimes too.
You all.
There's
yeah.
more bacteria in the average man's beard than on a dog. Look, I read it on the internet, so it's got to be true. Just letting you know. You have that
Alex.
little bacteria factory wrapped around your face.
And you're growing yours right now.
No, I shaved.
It's gonna be winter. It'll be back.
Okay.
Alex
I like these
said,
beard wars.
I recently purchased the Hall Tree project.
Okay.
Like you, I'm going to paint the cabinet and leave the bench natural. Any recommendations on the type of brushed / roll paint? Paint scares me.
Paint's not my favorite either. I'm not actually that great with paint. I don't have a ton of experience with it. So that's why I tend to stick with the companies I know well, like General Finishes, right? And they've got really nice milk paint. You don't have to spray milk paint. The stuff that they sell, if you want to use milk paint as an option, that is brushable and rollable. Any paint generally is. So there's that as an option, but you can also just go to a quality paint store. Go to a Sherwin-Williams or something like that, and talk to them about what you're painting, and you could probably find a really good paint that will be very durable for your application. And then just kind of maybe practice a little bit on getting a nice something without a lot of brush strokes or roller texture on there as well. And
A purdy brush.
yeah, give it a shot. It's again, I don't paint very often either. So
Scotty wants to know how Jason's dining table finish is holding up with 2 young children.
they don't use it.
Well, they sometimes use it.
They just got chairs,
They just got chairs.
and I don't know that they really have used it much.
Yeah.
So it's holding up great because it's sitting in their dining room unused.
Because they have a kitchen area that's
Well,
their primary.
Like a lot of families, they have a kitchen table.
Yeah.
And the kitchen table is where they eat most of the time, not on the dining table. Because they also, again, they
Ooh.
have kids. The kitchen table is on hardwood floors.
Right.
The dining table is on carpet. So when you have 2 little ones, you're usually going to avoid the
Just
carpet.
said the internet quality went down.
It's fine.
All right.
It's on their end. I was just going to assume that.
Hey, Ness G's in the house.
Hey, Ness.
Hey, Mark.
Yo.
I had to glue up a sandwich of wood to get the thickness for the legs of the Woodworkers Fighting Cancer dog feeder. Do you see a problem with this?
Not at all.
Cheers.
Not at all. Anytime you need to get the thickness for legs, especially on a project like this, don't give it a second thought. If you have that thick material, great. If not, I have done, in fact, my house is full of projects with very thick bigger legs that are made up of 2 boards.
Isn't that one table the sculpted table?
Sculpted table is one. The gaming coffee table, the gaming dining table.
Yeah.
These are all layups of 2 boards to get the thickness I needed. So don't sweat it at all.
Tim JB says you and Cremona should do a secret project for each other for the guild site and then see how each of you like its function, build, and use.
Sounds like work, Tim. Sounds like a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
You know what I should do? What I should build for Cremona?
Yeah.
A spice box,
spice
so we can get the damn thing done. Right? I've done like 5 projects since he started that. Can you believe it?
I know, right?
It's crazy. Now, actually, I talked with Matt. I don't know that we're going to do that, which you're talking about, Tim, but we are probably going to get together and do some kind of collaborative thing.
That'd be fun.
The challenge is, I told him, like, I don't want you to just come out here and then we just like goof around. I want to do something that actually is happening only because the 2 of us are in the same place at the same time. What are we going to do? And he goes, I don't know. So he's no help at all. So if you guys have a project you think that we could collaborate on and like
collaboration
knock
project?
out in a week, that would be insane. And we could make it a guild project too.
Yeah.
But we have to really put our heads together and come up with something cool.
How about a pie safe?
Sounds great.
A root cellar.
I thought you were going to say like a Rubo pie safe. Sounds good. I also thought about the possibility of a project that could be interpreted in 2 different ways, something that would not require us to get together
Yeah.
and do
Well,
like
I think that's what he's kind of talking about.
right, but he was saying give it to each other, something like that. But like a something 2 ways, that type of thing. But I don't know. We got ideas, but I want to get his butt out here because I want to hang out with the guy.
Michael wants to
I
know.
want to give him noogies on his head.
Michael wants to know what type of sprayer for your finishes do you use?
You don't really use the sprayer anymore, but you have
No, I do.
a food. Oh,
I just used it on the hall tree.
Oh, that's true. Fuji.
Yeah, Fuji. I've got a Fuji.
Fuji.
I got a Fuji Q5, and that's probably a little more than most people need. I would say for most of the folks that ask me questions and the people in the chat room, probably the Q3.
Which I have one in the Woodworkers Fighting Cancer's auction.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
So check that out, Michael. If you
Let
want
me see
to,
if it's
if you want to pay full price,
yeah.
plus a little bit maybe, but it's all for charity.
32auctions.com/WFC 2019. Let's see where we are.
Oh, we hit our goal.
We hit our goal.
We're $1 over our goal.
That's so awesome.
And we're just getting started.
That's great. Hey, speaking of the auction, some of you may or may not know this, but we have an all-access pass up for bidding, which means every single project, including the pre-orders, will be automatically unlocked. So
What if they have a bunch of projects already?
Well, I mean, that is a little wasted on them.
And maybe not the
But
not the thing for you.
It's usually for the people that maybe just bought one or
2.
two.
But then I think there's,
I want to say there's 35 projects.
How did that happen?
35 maybe. So yeah, it's an all-access pass. It's valued at $2,700. Like I went through and added every single project to my cart to get that amount. And it's the bidding is up to 1,000 right now.
I want to know, what does Sean mean with this question? He says, has your Buddhist tattoo gotten skinnier as you've gotten skinnier?
Oh, this guy?
Well, let's address have I gotten skinnier? I think I basically lost about 5 pounds in the
Yeah.
last year. So I'm flattered that you noticed that 5-pound loss.
People are
I
saying
weigh-
it's buffering.
Yeah, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
I weighed, oh shoot, no, he did do it. I think, okay, I was going to say, I thought we weren't on Ethernet, but we are. We got an Ethernet connection here. I weighed maybe around Christmas last year. I think I weighed in, my top weight was like 185, and now I think I'm like 175. So I guess maybe a 10-pound difference.
Yeah.
But thanks for noticing, man. And no, my tattoos are fine.
Yeah. Let me see. Where's the Fuji spray? Oh, it's up. So the value of the Fuji spray system is $675, and it's up to $675.
Okay, well, there you go.
But
I mean, if you're going to buy one anyway, how about getting one that goes to charity? That's great. What else?
What did I do with my? Here we go. How much taller is Marc over Matt?
Yeah, I don't really know. How tall would you say he is?
I don't know.
You know what he
Might
called?
be a few inches.
You know what he texted me today to tell me?
What?
That his ear holes are small.
I have tiny ear holes
that
too.
his Isotunes
Oh, they
headphones.
hurt my ears.
Well, the Isotunes went out, and he was like, I decided to try the Jaybirds that Mark recommended, and he can't get them in his ears because his dang ear holes are too small. You know, I mean, he's a small guy, you know, but he's not like
He's
you
a
know,
tiny mighty.
super teeny tiny dude. But I don't know, how tall is he? I don't know. Ask Matt. He's not shy about it. He's actually a good sport about that stuff.
Tim JB says maybe a multimedia storage tower. Everything's digital now.
Yeah, mine would look like a hard drive. My multimedia storage tower is a portable drive. What else we got?
No, Joe, I don't have the hammers. I never heard
Hammer?
from
Yeah,
It's
James
okay.
never got in touch with us about that.
It's all right.
But we're moving forward. We don't have time to stop.
Yeah, the auctions are ending on the 20th anyway. So let's see. Now I'm spending a lot of time managing the pictures that are coming in from the builds and
Mike?
I'm putting those up.
Mike says 5'2", 125 pounds.
No,
No, that sounds small. I don't think he's 5'2".
maybe. You're going to make him feel bad now.
Well, maybe he is, but regardless, I mean, I give him credit for being, maybe he's just that big of a personality.
Yeah.
That his stature seems bigger.
Ted had a idea for collaboration. Windsor chair traditional build.
Well, one of us would have to know how to build a Windsor chair.
That would.
And I don't think either one of us does. So that would be one hell of a show.
I remember you we have a video.
Well, I
you-
assembled a kit,
Yeah, oops, sorry.
which was not the same as building a Windsor chair by any means.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Okay,
hey,
what else?
Joe.
Joe just showed up.
And we're leaving, Joe. Sorry.
Okay, Joe's here. Everybody leave. Get out of here. Joe's here.
We got to get the kids
Yeah, we got to go in and take care
off
of the
the
kids.
iPads.
Did I miss anything? We're good?
Yep. Mighty Matt. Yes.
Okay, yeah. All right, so hey, just a couple of quick reminders, guild-specific stuff. Second video will be out this Friday for this under workbench cabinet build. You'll get the full demo on how to do this string inlay, pretty much what we talked about tonight, but in a little bit more detail. We also have the watch party coming up on Thursday, so if you want to get a preview of the first two videos in that series, you can do that. And then very soon, hot on the heels of this project starting, we're going to have Philip Morley's table project, which is starting in November. Do not want to miss that one.
I kind of am a little sad that he didn't come here to build it because then I would have a table.
Yeah, I think he probably would have found a way to get that thing home. It's a small enough table, and I think he wanted that table. I think they're using that table
are they?
in their kitchen.
Oh, that
Yeah.
is cool.
So
I
yeah,
really
it
like
went
Philip.
to good use.
Nice, nice guy.
All right, so that's really it regarding the guild stuff. Oh, and then November. Geez, November's going to be nuts.
It's November.
Well, we got to figure out the live schedule too because Ashley's coming out.
Oh, that's right.
In November, we're going to film her spindle turning course here.
Yep.
So it's going to be a busy time leading into the holidays.
And then we're just in December, taking a
Taking
break.
a break. Yeah, you're not going to hear much from us in December.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's actually kind of a neat idea.
iPhone charging station?
A charging station.
A collaborative build? I'm going to fly Matt all the way out here to build an iPhone charging station. I mean, I like the project idea.
Yeah. Maybe for the free site.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe not a.
Not like a big, giant collaborative effort. I needed Matt to do this. I have a feeling bringing Matt out just might slow me down. To be quite honest at this point. Okay, well, have a great night,
Yes.
everybody.
Thank you for being guild members.
Yeah, thanks for being guild members. And of course, follow me on Instagram. That's the place I hang out the most on social media if you want to see updates on this project and just kind of see where things are going. Blow by blow. Not really. I just kind of, anytime I feel like talking about something related to a project, it's usually going to be on Instagram, shared to Facebook, but I don't pay as much attention
I think
to Facebook.
everybody's going to bed.
Good night, everyone. Good night, my friends. Have a wonderful
Or
evening.
good morning to Ness.
Yes, good morning, Ness. Go have some coffee. Okay, let's get out of here.
Bye.
Toodles. I'll stop it.